there's not a lot I can say to introduce our featured speaker tonight that would do her justice. So I would just say that there is a really good reason that Assemblywoman Shannon Groves scares the heck out of the Democratic Party. Especially our establishment in Sacramento. So with that, Assemblywoman Shannon Groves.
Stand behind the table.
Go wherever you want.
Is that okay?
There's a space over there. Here.
I brought some props with me. Oh.
Denied.
Denied.
These are the band props?
Yeah, the band props. I brought those too. Let me tell you. So just so you guys know, that's kind of a protocol. It's a protocol. Permission to speak, permission to use a prop, permission to question the author of a bill. So it's just a protocol. It's like a rule of the House. And the 8 months that I've been there, I've heard the word denied once, and that was the other day. So that was a video, and I'll get to that in just a few seconds. For those of you who don't know me, I was born and raised in Arvin. My mom was a single mom, barely graduated for high school. After high school, I joined the United States military, served overseas at Headquarters Company 5th Corps in Frankfurt, Germany. Came home. I was what they call a Cold War veteran. So I was in Berlin, actually I was in Berlin in Germany when the wall came down between East and West Berlin in November of 1989. Wow. And I see things and I think about all the things that God did to prepare me for this position. And I see a guy that when the wall came down, he had no shirt on, he had baggy jeans, and he had his hand in the air, and his rib cage was showing, and his face, I can still picture his face all this time later, because that's the face of freedom coming through the wall. And if that doesn't give you guys chills up your spine, then you don't need to be here. Because bottom line is, Ronald Reagan used to say that we're one generation away from losing our freedoms. In the state of California, you are one election away from losing your freedom. And it's time to act, and it's time to act now. So I served in the military. I came home. I worked for different temporary staffing agencies, and then I started my own business down a dirt road off of Fruitvale Avenue. My brother hawked his cows. We started with $5,000, and now we have 5 offices in California, 2 in Greeley, Colorado, and we run about a $25 million a year payroll. So I kind of set myself up in the business world. I went to a chamber meeting one day, and they said, are you a small business or a sole proprietorship? And I said, small business, check. They said, does somebody else sign on your checking account? And I'm like, no. Can somebody else contract loans? No. Can somebody else do this? And out of all those questions, I answered no, and I realized, oh my God, I'm a sole proprietor. I better change my direction. So I changed the direction of my company, which enabled me to be in a position to where I could leave the business for a certain length of time, and the business would still thrive and grow. So that's another thing that God prepared me for. I thought, personally, I was going to go to Africa, back to Zimbabwe, where I have an orphanage and some stuff that I do there. And then lo and behold, around December of 2009, I started what they would call, I guess, a courtship with the political world. And when it came, I'd never been in politics before. The most I ever did was vote. And if you followed the campaign, I didn't do that consistently. Okay? So the most I ever did was vote. And when this position or this opportunity came up, I was really kind of insecure about it. And what I did is, you know, I talked to my husband, and I think my husband was thinking, boy, I hope she gets that out of her system. So I think my husband was thinking that. And so we prayed about it. We fasted over it. We did a Daniel's fast for 21 days. We prayed over it. We still felt compelled to do it. So I went to meet our political consultant that's namely in our area that's very good and has a great success rate. And I said, I want to run for the assembly seat. Gene Fuller's running for the Senate seat, and I want to run for the assembly seat. And so he goes, well, I'll think about it. I think he had other candidates. Then eventually he made the phone call back to me, and we announced in February, February 25th, we announced, and on June, the June primary, we won by 78% of the vote. We joke about it because we were like, well, you know, maybe God's going to open doors for me to meet a lot of people, and, you know, that's what's going to happen. And I'm like, yeah, and then the worst case scenario, June comes, and I go back to doing what I was doing. And so 3 o'clock in the morning, we're sitting on the couch, and he goes, babe, you're going to the California State Assembly. I'm like, I know. so here we are, 8 months into this new job. And I've learned a lot. I've learned that our state is in big, desperate, dire need, and we are in a lot of trouble. And I'm hoping that coming to events like this will encourage people to rise up and take back our state. Because believe me, it's going downhill, and it is going downhill very fast. So I have some things for you. This is what we call a daily file. So, this is, and it actually says there's 4 of 4. So but I only had 3 in my car, so somebody borrowed, or, I take them places and they live. So these are bills that come through on a daily basis on the floor. So this is on our desk, and believe me, and I've had them as thick as 7 thick. So you can kind of glance through those. That's a daily file. One of the things that I got in trouble for when I first got to Sacramento was my big sign that I have on my door, which is all the state boards and commissions. So you have the California Task Force for Culturally and Linguistically Challenged Dentists that we fund. That's very important. Or we'd go, the state would actually go probably in a big mess if we didn't have that. There's all these state boards and commissions. I'm going to pass a list around. I'll start it up here, several pages long. You guys can kind of glance through it, but that's all these. So I put this on my door, and people are like, the speaker doesn't like your sign, Miss Grove, and I'm like, oh, okay. He says, so another person comes up and goes, did you know, we told you the speaker doesn't like your sign? I'm like, yeah, okay. And, they don't know what to do with me too much because I really don't respond the way they'd like me to. So then somebody else comes up and says, Miss Grove, you were told that the speaker doesn't like your sign. I go, oh, yes, I was. And they said, well, you need to take that sign down. And I said, sure, give it to me in writing. Or sure, I said, sure. This is a couple of days later, he comes back and he goes, you can take your sign down. And I go, but you didn't say when. And I said, I'd like it in writing. So they wouldn't give it to me in writing. So then they came up, and it's on my phone, and I should get it. They came up to me, so they tried to bully me into taking my sign down, and I wouldn't do it. Then they came up, and if you go around the Capitol now, there's these square signs with this beautiful assembly seal. So I get called into rules, and they're like, Miss Grove, look at this new sign. And if you take your sign down, we'll put one of these signs up for you, and like everybody else in the building. And I go, how much does that sign cost? And he goes, well, I don't know. And I go, well, find out and get back to me. Total cost was like $518 sign and installation. I go, that's okay. I don't want that sign. So that sign is still on my door. So there have been times when we've been in a heated debate on the floor, and I've been threatened, As a matter of fact, somebody walked up, poked me in the chest, and goes, Miss Grove, that sign is coming down. And, of course, tonight. And I've been on my high horse at times in that building. And I said, I swear to God, I'll call the cops if my sign disappears. So we have these debates that go on the floor with ridiculous things. Then we have serious things. Things that happen like bad bills. I know, I think they passed out a list. I'm just going to go over a few of them. I'm going to skip Leno because I'm going to talk about that at the end because I have petitions if you guys have not signed them. So you got CEDIO, AB 130 and 131, the DREAM Act, the Nightmare Act. Illegals, AB 130 is already passed. That's private funding. So there's a big donor, they donate to a college, that private funding is now available by law for illegals, okay? There's a caveat in that bill and also with 131, that caveat in that bill says if your child gets denied entry to a college, because there's only so many classes, and it goes to, say there's 4 positions available and they go to 4 illegals, and you're naturally born here or you've come here the right way, and you apply to that position, and your child gets denied that because they give it to an illegal, you cannot sue the school system or the UC system. Because we asked that, we were debating them, and we said, what if they sue the system? What if they sue the UCs? It's going to open up lawsuits. So they made a caveat in the law that says you can't sue the UC system if your child is denied based on somebody else getting an illegal status entry into education. AB 131 is another bill that's coming. It's already passed both the House floor. Senate floor, it's on the governor's desk. That's for public taxpayer funding. For illegals to get public taxpayer funding for our tax dollars to pay for their education in the UC system. Even though they can't work and you're fined $10,000 an employer afterwards, it's just a mess. What I've learned to do is listen to the small talk. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall and then everybody kind of listens to what they say. Like when they were talking about this DREAM Act bill, or the Nightmare Act bill, when they were talking about that, it's kind of like the students are just the beginning. Think of their parents. And you're like, oh my God. When they talk about the gay lesbian education bill, and they talk about that, and they go, just imagine, a world where teachers or people in authority could not identify someone's gender. I'm sorry, I thought they already had their gender when they were born, but things like this that they throw out there to see what will stick. You got the worst ones are Tom Amiano from San Francisco and Cedillo from Los Angeles.